Commissioner Andrews.
Here.
The first item on the agenda is public comment. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes and do not include any topics that are on the agenda. Public comment will be allowed after agenda items come up, and please state your name and address for the record. Public comment is now closed. Next item on the agenda is the selection of our city manager. I'll start off by saying I had high hopes for some of the candidates, but I was not really pleased with, as I thought I would be. And in general, I just not happy with the overall selection of the candidates. And I would really rather bring in an interim and re-advertise, and that's what I would recommend, unless the city manager would consider staying on.
Madam Mayor, I'm certainly humbled by the opportunity, but at this particular moment, I have signed a contract with the city of Riviera Beach and plan to start employment there on July 12th. So certainly I appreciate your remarks, and certainly it means a lot to hear that from you. But I'm certainly here to help as much as I can as far as the transition. So I really appreciate what you've said.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. I appreciate your consideration at any rate. So that's sort of how I feel about the candidates. How do you guys feel?
How is this whole thing going to work? Is someone going to make a nomination and somebody second it? Or how exactly is this system going to work tonight?
Madam Mayor, if I may, it certainly is up to the pleasure of the board. What I've seen other entities do is that they go through each of the candidates and talk about some attributes or characteristics or how they answered questions. I've also seen it where a commissioner would mention who they believe to be the top candidate and see if there is a second, and then have discussions about that particular candidate, and then potentially look to do a roll call vote, or the clerk is prepared for each of you to write your top candidate on a piece of paper, maybe you rank them from 1 through 5, and then she can tally the scores and then read that out to the board, and then the board can entertain a motion. So whichever the pleasure of the board is.
Yeah, I'd suggest that way. That sounds like a good plan. I mean, let us rate them out. Let's see where we're all standing even before we kind of. I mean, if I may, I disagree with you completely, Madam Mayor. I thought there were 2 or 3 people in there that would have been that credentially and experience-wise are, far and beyond anything we've had here. I mean, I thought we had a really, really solid list of candidates to choose from, and I think pushing an interim in there and going through this process all over again is ridiculous. I don't see any reason for that at all.
Madam Mayor, I would like to hear what my fellow commissioners have to say about why their top picks were their top picks, and I'd like to tell my fellow commissioners why my top picks, why. I mean, if I truly also believe that Mr. Evans is his credentials certainly speak for themselves, but I think that some of these candidates also, I don't mind starting off if someone else
I think
wants
that's
to
an
or
excellent
whatever.
idea.
Do we want to rate them first?
No, I think we should discuss.
Say again?
I think we should discuss it amongst ourselves.
First off, I'd like to apologize for everybody for not being here. Trying to get back from vacation and became kind of ill and unable to make it back. I didn't get back till very late that night, so I wanted to apologize. But I've watched it several times on DVR, and I've reread these things at least 5 or 6 times, I know. So I just wanted to throw that in.
Madam
Well,
Mayor,
I do think it's a good idea that we discuss it before we rate them, and that could change somebody's mind.
Madam Mayor, to your point, or to Commissioner Andrews' point, If you are to list who your top candidates are, at that time, each of you can go and speak to those candidates, because for the public record, you do need to communicate out loud who your top candidates are. So is a little bit of a hybrid approach to list your candidates, your top fives, and then you can go through each of those candidates as to number one, I've chose number one because of X, Y, and Z, but for the actual memorializing in the public record, we need you to state who your top candidates are.
I understand that, but discussing it first, we can still do that and then put down our top five.
That's your president. Whatever the pleasure of the board is.
Why don't we try to, rather than top five, why don't we go with like the top three, to start narrowing this down to start with? Because we could be here all night if we stay with the top five. We know who the top five are. We have, we've already made that decision.
Right.
So I think either the top two or three, I think, is what we need to.
It's
kind
actually
of-
only the top four.
Huh?
Didn't we narrow it down to really just the last four?
Okay. Then do we drop it down to two or three? Let's start narrowing it down, I guess is what I'm saying.
Really, I only have top two. I only have two that I really thought stood out. If you wanted to start? or
Doesn't
do
matter, you can go ahead.
Okay. The first one that I really liked was Michelle Nooner. She expressed and showed a lot of leadership, her skills, her financial background. I was very impressed with that. I was very impressed with the way she presented herself when asked questions. She seemed to be very sure of herself and very confident, and I liked that in a person. My other choice would have been Lyndon Bonner. I liked him too. He seems like he's a real go-getter. I think he'd come in as gangbusters and really make a big difference in City Hall. I liked his resume. I liked the comments that people made about him, saying that he was very strict, but yet he had a very good sense of humor, and he was compassionate too. So those were my two top picks, but my first one would have been Michelle.
Okay, and the two that I thought were the best after looking at all of their information, listening to their presentation. Also, I reviewed the comments that the city manager gave us with regards to the department heads and what their analysis of the individuals were, and I tabulated them all. And the reason that I put James Drum as my first choice was I really took his last two evaluations, the one that was done in City of Brunswick, Georgia, and the other one in Zephyr Hills, because they were very similar to the matrices that we used. And while they weren't exemplary as far as his, maybe shall I say, I don't like to use the word personality, but maybe his approach, okay? I feel his record of fiscal responsibility, planning, budgetary information was very, very clear. And even though some of those evaluations were a little bit vague in their, well, they were a little bit vague, they made it very clear that he was a very responsible individual. And that's why I really liked him. I liked this packet that he had distributed to us, and I looked through it a lot, and God, if he did a third of these things that, that his professionalism, I guess. I think that he would be a very solid supporter of the citizens and the commissions. There were some things that in there, I think that, it says that he had to improve. Some of them were telephone calls back, and but nobody said he didn't do a good budget or he was not fiscally sound, okay, and relayed that to his commissioners. Let me see, what else did I have on him? So yes, some of the people, for instance, from Brunswick, the mayor there, his current boss, knowledge of government ordinances, laws, and practices is just exemplary, he said. And people don't often have to use that word. So he was really my number one pick. I think he would be a very solid supporter of our city, and I think he would help us in the future years to move on. I think that he's very familiar with this area. He's not from the beach, but remember, he's the one who spent his youth here, and he is a Florida boy, so he has, been in Florida most of his life and had his education here. So, yeah, I definitely thought that he would make us proud and that we could hold on to him for quite a while. And also the approach that he takes on grants. He has got a very good record of getting grants. He's a good listener, has had success working with chambers of commerce and business groups. He likes to give his commission a status report on his projects every 2 weeks. Yeah, I liked him first. I was real impressed, certainly, with Michelle Nooner. I think when she said that she wants to keep small town preservation approach and she knows how passionate people are in small communities, I think that certainly resonated with me. It really made me feel that she is certainly an excellent candidate and probably ready to take that role. But I just didn't feel at this time I just felt that Drum would do a more solid, a more complete job with her, with us. But I do think she has, wonderful credentials, and she certainly came in close. So let me see, did I have anything else I want to say? Connectivity with the team. Her family's here, and of course that's a plus, but then his, Drum's family is here too. No, that's it, I think. I might throw something else in, but that's it.
Huh? No, go ahead, Doug.
Yeah, I kind of like them all in a way. Frankly, if I could find a way to hire the last guy, Butterfield, I would do it in a second. He was a terrific guy with great stuff. The lack of city experience is the only downfall. And right now, we can't afford to teach anybody how to be a city manager. But I hope we can find him a position somewhere here because he was terrific. Of the ones that have been discussed, I liked all of them in this particular order. I thought Michelle kind of stood out, and she stood out to me basically because of a couple of points. Her financial background is, I think, exceeds anybody else's that we spoke to as far as her involvement. She's been working in cities for, I think it was 27 years. She's familiar with, and she's only had 2 jobs, which I like too, so she has a strong financial background. The budget area is something that we desperately need help on, and her budget background, again, outshines anybody else's budget background that we talk to. She wants this job. She's already made the commitment to live here. She's got a house in Reddington. The transition won't be tough, and it doesn't, she's got 2 grown children, so I don't think anything will kind of factor in her way as far as getting here quickly and starting. So I like that as well. And frankly, the most, I tend to listen. We only had a few minutes with these folks. We only had about 45 minutes ourselves to interview them, and we didn't really do much interviewing. Jonathan asked some questions, and I would hope some of these people were nervous because, unless the people that do really well in those are people that interview a lot. You know what I mean? Because they're used to those questions. The top 3 people that I admire most and this kind of thing. So I didn't really put a whole lot into their answers on that because I think a lot of them are canned answers and already discussed. But what I really took a lot of notes on were the interviews that they did with the staff, and it seemed like, from what I read, Michelle's assessments were, again, they outshined everybody else. So I did like her. I thought my second candidate would be Lyndon Bonner. I thought his directness, I thought his experience was terrific. I'm a little nervous that he seems to kind of go a year and a half at a job or 6 months at a job, and that would be the only thing that would scare me at this point. But he does look like he did. We had the conversation while we were here that he wanted to settle down and kind of go. This is his choice, and his wife just retired, so that put me at ease with that. He'd be number 2, and then and Mr. Drum would be number 3. I think his experience is great too. I just. You got to rank them 1, 2, 3. That's how I got him. I don't think there's any particular thing that stood out to me about Mr. Drum that would make me have him vault over the other 2, though. So that's just my thoughts.
My first one would be Drum, and just watching the interviews and reading his resume, I just felt he was the strongest. I was kind of impressed when I'm watching the interviews that he was the only candidate that mentioned ethics, so that was pretty kind of important to me. I just thought he presented himself very, very well. My second candidate would be Butterfield. I know he does not have the experience, but I think his military background, which we're supposed to consider in that position, I think is very strong. He's done a lot in his military career, so that would be my number 2 person, would be Butterfield. Going into, before I watched all this, I really was a very strong candidate of Michelle Nooner, but watching her, she looked like, and I wasn't here, so I'm just going by what I saw on TV. Seemed like she stumbled and stuttered through the interview. Now, I don't know. You guys are talking about interview with another interview that I'm not aware of. So I've only can go by what I saw on television, and that's kind of where I think that she fell down. Was she just didn't seem very aggressive. She didn't seem very strong. She didn't seem to have the answers or the right answers when the questions were asked. And so that's why, and I don't think she came over as extremely strong. And I think at this point, we need somebody very strong in the position. So that my first 2 are Drum and Butterfield. Thank you.
I know a lot of you like Drum, and I liked him. I liked him except for his reviews. His reviews said he was slow to answer emails, he doesn't keep the council informed, and he doesn't get out and meet with the residents and the businesses. And to me, that's pretty much key. So I really can't say I'm in favor of him. I believe Butterfield and McNall just don't have enough experience, yet they did both interview very well. And I agree with everyone about Michelle Nooner. She, on paper, looked like she was the top candidate of all, without interviewing anybody. But then when she came up here at the dais, she was, as John said, she stumbled, she was soft-spoken, I didn't feel like she was coming across as strong as she should have. And then Bonner, what I liked about him was he seemed very relaxed, and from what I read about him, he is a good consensus builder. And as far as, where was I? The other thing I'm basing my decisions on are what the staff or the department heads, how they voted, and they overwhelmingly like Bonner and Nooner. So that's where I stand.
What's your number 1?
I haven't decided yet.
What's number 2?
Can I just ask a question? I just wanted to know, did y'all review the department heads' evaluations of them? Did everybody review those?
I did.
I didn't see it, no.
It was, Jonathan sent that to us. It was every every individual, there were 5 department, am I allowed to say that?
Sure.
Yeah, it was, the department heads who completed these were O'Neill, Hatch, Pierce, and Laramie, 4 of them. That was it, yeah. And, yeah, they wrote some very descriptive analysis, how their time spent, was, and I think that that's really important to consider, because remember, they're going to be reporting to her. I mean, she or he will report to us, but, those staff people report. Drum came in really strong. Well, all of them did. Nooner did come in first, okay? And I think that certainly tells a lot about her, abilities to work with staff, which of course she's been with, Winter Park for 12 years and City of Maitland for 10. But when I took the analysis of the city commission's evaluations of the different people, and of course I didn't have one on Nooner and didn't really have one on Bonner either. It was only Drum that we had them from the city commissioner's point. And like I said before, I really liked his strength. His strength was very solid. I was just curious if y'all had, looked at the department heads, because I think that was telling also. I think that he could work well with them, but I think that he's definitely a no-nonsense person.
Well, and to further go on that point, they were voted, I don't know how many questions there were, but they got five votes, 1 to 5 on each question. And I added up how they all came out, and it turned out that Nooner got a score of 168. She was the top. Second one was Bonner at 138. The next one was Drum at 125, and Butterfield was at the bottom with 110. So by their thinking, Nooner and Bonner were the top 2.
Well, but Drum was just 3 down from that.
Yes, he was.
Yeah, but I understand, yeah. I was just looking at it from both angles and from a citizen's, from actually, because I paid attention too, and I don't know who said that, but one of y'all said that, that Drum did not seem to have the qualities to, deal with citizens probably as well as maybe he could have, but I think that's, I guess maybe he would need a little bit more encouragement on that or whatever. I think that could be, I think that could be changed a little bit, but okay.
Anybody have any further comments? No?
Butterfield's working over at St. Pete Beach in Public Works. Maybe we can get him to come over here in Public Works.
There you go.
He did have a good personality.
Yeah, he did. So I guess the next step is we're going to take a paper vote. Is that what you suggested?
You do that or open it up for public comment?
All right, let's do that. We'll open it up for public comment right now.
Robert Preston, 425 South Bayshore Drive, Madeira Beach. I liked both. I talked to them all. I listened to what they did. I didn't get to see what the city staff had to say about the individuals, but I liked both Nooner and Bonner. It could be either, that could be a toss-up there. As far as Nooner's presentation when she was sitting at the dais, so in my professions, I ran a fire department, knew exactly what I was doing. I could direct men do whatever they wanted, and they would do for me because I led them. I didn't push them. I had to put on a Alaska State Firefighters Association conference. And I had to get up and speak in front of these 1,000 people. And I was pretty much a bumbling idiot, but I knew my job. You know, so sometimes when you're in situations where you're trying to speak in front of people, or you're getting questioned, it becomes, it kind of affects you a little bit. Another instance, another situation is that I spent 5 years as a police officer as well. So you do your job, you do it well, and then you get into a courtroom and they ask you questions, and you do get nervous. So even though you're a police officer and you know you're in the right. And then my last job was with Trans-Alaska Pipeline. And I sat in front of 10 computer screens and ran processes that loaded ships, vapor recovery, power plant operations, and I had people working beside me. Now, if you were to drill me on those questions as to what I did, did I do this, did I do that, it didn't come out very well. But if you asked me to act and do the job, I did it really well. I did it so well that when I retired, I was gone for 3 months. I got a phone call, and they called me back to work, and I worked 4 years, 2 weeks on and 2 weeks off, flying back and forth to Alaska to train the people to do the job that I was doing. And they paid for everything: hotel, food, lodging, transportation. But again, if I was to be asked, you know, questions, I would be a bumbling idiot at times. So that doesn't always tell what that person is. I think if you look at the background on them and what they've said, I think it's pretty good. And the client, of the people of your city. Thank you.
Anybody else wish to speak? Public comment is now closed. So how do we want to proceed then? Just put down our top two?
Or someone make a motion and
Somebody
someone
make a
second it and
motion.
vote. And then
Okay.
if the person passes, then that's over. If it's not, then we just go on and
Okay,
keep going until it goes over.
sounds good.
Did you go up and fix up a form for us to fill out?
The city clerk does have a form, and just for safe measures, I would recommend that you just write your top two and then read those out, because if the first name comes up and it gets 3 votes right then and there, that's the manager, and then you never know, the next name can have 4 votes. So if you can write the top two, and then the clerk
In no
can,
particular order?
your number 1 and then
Oh.
number 2.
Okay.
So you got to figure it out, Maggie.
I know.
I know it's a tough job. Put our names on them.
Yes, please. Nope.
Pass them down, I guess. That's 3.
And once the clerk receives them, she'll read it for the record.
What I'm going to do is read each of the commission members' choices, and then I'll read the tally. Vice Mayor Hodges, first choice, Michelle Nooner. Second choice, Lyndon Bonner. Commissioner Weinstein, first choice, James Drum. Second choice, Michelle Nooner. Commissioner Andrews, first choice, Nooner. Second choice, Bonner. Commissioner Douthat, first choice, Drum. Second choice, Butterfield. Mayor Black, first choice, Bonner. Second choice, Nooner. Michelle Nooner received 4 points. Lyndon Bonner, 3 points. James Drum, 2 points. Butterfield, 1 point. Yes, ma'am. Michelle Nooner, 4 points. Lyndon Bonner, 3. James Drum, 2. Butterfield, 1. And that equals to 10.
I missed something somewhere, but that's okay.
I think we have our new city
No,
manager.
we still got to vote on it.
Oh, we got to vote?
You have to do a vote, yes.
Oh, okay.
That is correct. Madam Mayor, also for, obviously, Ms. Nooner being the one that received the most tallies, it does send a clear and distinct message when you do appoint an administrator, if the board can find it to appoint them unanimously. That helps the manager to show that there is support from the board coming into a position. So from the staff's perspective, I would urge you to consider moving forward with the appointment, but moving forward in a united front with a unanimous vote to appoint the next city manager.
We have a motion?
Yeah, I'll do that. I'd like to make a motion to welcome Michelle Nooner as our new city manager in Madeira Beach. Michelle will be coming to us from Winter Park, Florida. She has a home in an adjacent town, and I think that we'll all be very happy with her arrival.
I second it.
Will City Clerk please call the roll?
Commissioner Weinstein,
Yes?
Commissioner Andrews,
Yes.
Commissioner Douthat,
No.
Vice Mayor Hodges,
Yes.
Mayor Black.
Yes. All right, I think now we do have a new city manager, assuming she agrees.
Madam Mayor, also, I would ask direction from the board if the city attorney and I can reach out to Ms. Nooner and begin the contract negotiations with the hope of bringing a contract for your consideration at the first meeting in July.
I think that would be appropriate.
Is there support from the board to do so?
Yes.
Yes.
The only thing of it is, I think that when you're negotiating the contract, I think we need to hold tight on what the announcement announced at 125 and not go above that, period.
We will commence the negotiation process and then bring back some items for you all to consider, and that ultimately would be a policy direction or a policy decision that you and the board will make when that time presents itself. So.
And then I would also ask the board to consider putting an interim city manager in the time being, because we don't know how long this is going to take or how long it's going to take that person. I think we truly need to put an interim city manager in.
And Madam Mayor, if I may, that's the second item on the agenda for this evening. The board postponed the discussion on an interim manager, Commissioner Douthat, in your absence, so it's time for us to discuss that that item at this moment.
Because that's not on That's not on the agenda.
It was supposed to be placed on the agenda.
It was, actually, it started being on, or it was first delivered to us on June the 13th, discussion of an interim city manager, and then on June the 25th, was the date that we were going to talk about it the next time, and we didn't talk about it, June 25th, in leaning to talk to it tonight,
Yeah.
to address it tonight. So I have comments on that.
Legally, can we discuss it, since it wasn't
It
noticed?
was mentioned at the last meeting of the Board of Commissioners, and it was directed to put it on to this particular item, or this particular meeting for discussion.
But it wasn't publicly noticed.
I'd have to defer to the clerk as far as what her recommendation is.
Andrea said that she posted it, and whatever, I wasn't here when the agenda was put together, but she said they were all posted.
That's the one I took from the back of the room.
You're asking if both items were listed?
Both items were supposed to be listed because at the end of the meeting, I did ask the board for authorization to move this item to the 27th meeting because we wanted to ensure that the entire balance of the board was here to discuss that, and we did not want to discuss such an important matter with Commissioner Douther being absent. And unfortunately, it looks like it did not, at least in the copy that is on the dais, that did not occur.
I could go and check the bulletin board and see what she posted there, if you would like. I can run out there and look.
We can.
We can check online too. Let me see what's online. Yes, ma'am.
I mean, this is the one that's distributed here, though. That's got to be the one we go by. I can't think that we can go outside of that. And we're meeting on Monday. We can put for a workshop. We can discuss it during a workshop, right?
Well, y'all were the ones that wanted to start it, to do it on the 25th. You know, we were going to talk about it on the 13th of June, and it went until the 25th because, well, I have it here, Commissioner Andrews says let's wait until the 25th. And I really think, I feel like if there's any way we can even do any kind of a discussion, we don't have to vote on it, but I think that we need to, is there any way that we can, after Ms. Moore checks it, to determine
If I know there was discussions with the board to possibly call a meeting on Monday, but that hadn't been finalized because the board was split on that particular item. So as of this particular moment, there is not a meeting for Monday, but in the event the board wanted to call a meeting to do so, they can certainly do so. Unless the clerk finds on the online record or the item that was posted shows that.
The online agenda is one item, selection of city manager.
Okay, so we would have to postpone the discussion until another day because it wasn't added.
that is disappointing. I do find that disappointing because I feel like that's a very important part of us to have to go forward to make sure that we have someone on board. I truly was thinking of, not less than 60 days, and I really like the idea of bringing Mr. Saunders. Can we even ask you, has he contacted you, or we're not allowed to ask you that now?
I would prefer that we discuss
Okay.
it on an agenda
Okay.
item.
Just asking.
Well, can't we have a special meeting on Monday at 1:30 before the workshop meeting? And discuss
If
it then?
if it is the pleasure of the board, we can certainly do
Is
that.
that Tuesday or Monday?
Monday,
I cannot make Mondays.
Monday. Well, then we could do it,
Workshops are usually on Tuesday.
well, we have a 2:00 workshop on Monday. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
When did we move the workshops to Monday?
The workshops were moved, this workshop was moved to Monday because we have budget meetings and a whole bunch of other meetings that we had to shift it. This workshop was supposed to be the items that were going to be discussed on the 25th, but those were the days of the manager interview, so we moved it to Monday.
Right.
Unless you want to have the special meeting before the Tuesday afternoon meeting.
We've got a BOC meeting 10 a.m. on Tuesday.
Oh, okay.
We could do it then, before then, or after that. Well, before would be better. Would that work for everybody?
I don't know, that Tuesday 10 a.m. meeting was canceled. The latest calendar, that item was canceled.
Okay,
Yeah,
the Tuesday 10 a.m. meeting was canceled.
that was canceled.
Okay.
The revised,
There's
yes.
two.
Okay, then we can still have a meeting on Tuesday, though, can't we?
Well, will you be able to make, you can't do any meeting on Monday?
I'll make it. I'll try to get out and do it.
Okay,
Mondays, Thursdays, and Fridays, I normally book solid.
okay. So what time would you be available?
Do 2 o'clock, I'll figure out something.
2 o'clock, when?
Monday, 2 o'clock, I will figure out something.
For the workshop, but we still have to have a meeting to.
We will call,
Right after it, right before it, I don't care.
we'll call a special meeting at 2 o'clock and then have the workshop immediately following
Okay.
the meeting.
Okay. Special meeting Monday at 2 p.m. Okay, and then workshop after. Okay.
Do we need to vote on that?
Yes, Madam Mayor?
All right. Do we have a motion then?
I make a motion that we do 10 o'clock or 2 o'clock on Monday,
Okay. To discuss the interim city manager.
and then followed by the workshop.
Okay. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Any more discussion? Will the city clerk please call the roll?
Commissioner Douther,
Yes.
Commissioner Andrews.
Yes.
Commissioner Weinstein,
Yes,
Vice Mayor Hodges,
Yes,
Mayor Black.
Yes.
I make a motion that we adjourn.
We have a second?
second.
Will the city clerk please call the roll?
Commissioner Douther,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Hodges,
Yes.
Commissioner Weinstein,
yes.
Commissioner Andrews,
Yes.
Mayor Black.
Yes. Meeting is adjourned. It's 6:44.